Good morning, everybody. This is William Metzinger and Kyra Shackelford. Joining us this morning is the director of TC Motion. His name is Max Zug. Thanks for joining us today.
Wow, thanks for having me.
So TC Motions is a part of TC Studios in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they are a motion communications content provider serving advertising agencies, broadcasters, and corporate communicators. And they travel all over the country making work.
So, kind of the first question, real basic, just how did TC Motion begin? Were you always the director, or was there some position switches in there?
No, I've always been a director at TC Motion. I came out of college in 1984, pegged my age a little bit, Temple University, and I had some jobs in television. Then went internal corporate inside of Ford New Holland as a media producer. And about 3 years into that, Ford was purchased by Fiat. And some people had some advance notice of it. And I was approached by, at that time, my supervisor at Ford New Holland to join a company called VMI Communications to become a media producer for them and essentially handle New Holland's account and then try to grow that account beyond just New Holland. And we set up this company, VMI Communications. So pretty early on there, I was a director. Even in television, my first job in TV was called sales service coordinator. What that was inside of a television station, the traffic department who puts the stuff on the air, the salespeople who sell the airtime, and the production company who does the spot to get it on the air didn't play really well together. And so I went for a job interview, and they explained the role, and it sounded like I was going to be a good fit. And the moment he explained the role, I realized, well, that's a director, because I'm in the middle of all of that. So really, from the first job I've had in this industry, I've been a director. When go back to that New Holland thing in VMI, that lasted 5-6 years, and it became apparent that that company was about to bust apart. There's a couple of little steps in between there, but I ended up buying out all the gear from that VMI Communications, all the video gear, and I rubbed a decal on the door in 1997 and started a company called Max Films. And I was the principal, and I was the director. And so I had to have some level of entrepreneurial spirit and understand some business mechanics. But literally, I was there to direct motion content, filmed communication. Not still photography, but pictures in motion. Very different discipline. And Max Films had a great 14-year run, but you guys have probably still hear about the crash in 2008. We don't really call it a crash. I think we've called it the Great Recession. Everybody and their brother owed me money, and I owed everybody and their brother money, and it just wasn't fun anymore. I kept that company going midway through 2000, most of the way through 2010. One of my largest customers was TC Studios. I was their main video source. We were Max Films, because it's not just me, it's an organization. When I decided that Max Films wasn't fun anymore and I was spending too much time with bankers, lawyers, and accountants and not enough time having fun and doing creative and making cool videos, my wife and I decided to let's close it down. And TC called with a rather large job, and they were the first people I told, hey, I'm gonna shut this down. And they were like, no, you can't. You're our video source. And I said, well, they approached me and said, listen, we hate you're going through this. You're going to shut it down. That means a bank workout, meaning I owed the bank a lot of money, but there were assets. And so they said, look, we hate you're going through it, but it's opportunity. We wanted to figure out how to buy your company about 2 years ago. Maybe now there's opportunity. And so I met with the ownership group at TC and basically brought my unit over from Max Films into TC. So I not only came in as a director, I came in as somebody who was operating a completely brand new and separate operating division. So that's how kind of I got to TC and, as a director. And really it started with my first job as directing.
Are there people with you today that were with you back when you were Max Film?
Yeah, that was August of 2010. I have 3 people on present staff who were with me, and for a couple of years at Max Films. It's a pretty tight unit. We do creative, and there could be some tension in getting creative through a shop, but we all seem to gel really well together. And then, you know, there's now people who have been with us on staff for 8 years since TC Motion began, since Max Films made that transition to TC Motion.
You mentioned the Great Recession.
Yeah.
What is the most challenging aspect of your job?
Well, I think, you know, there's all kinds of challenges. First of all, I'm the kind of person who believes, like, you don't grow unless there's challenges. Sometimes they're a pain in the butt to go through, but you always tend to come out on the other end with either more knowledge, more experience, or, you know, you're just sharpened a little better. You know, finance and business and finding customers and, you know, outlets for your creative endeavors, that's always challenging. But I've done this continually since 1985. So, you know, I've overcome that. I'd say the biggest challenge is probably putting it out there. And by that, I mean, I'm challenged every day in my job to come up with a creative solution. Forget solution, to come up with creative. Now, it has to be based in a strategy, and it has to either help a company sell more, or it has to advocate for a position, or, you know, it's got some work it has to do. But in the end, it's creative. And putting your ideas out there that you think are good, and you've got to pitch them in front of somebody, and you've got to stand behind them and say, no, man, this will work. I mean, look how great this is. This is why I see it working. Just that fact of getting the stuff that's in your head out and given to other people is pretty challenging for me. And I would suggest a lot of creatives, right? Because we wear our emotions on our sleeves. You know, our ideas, you know, we shape them, we mold them. They're kind of like extensions of us. And so when you put them out there, you always risk that moment of, yeah, well, I don't like that idea. What else do you have? So I think that's probably the most challenging part, and that's just internal conflict stuff, is getting over that. Now, experience helps. You know, after you do it for a little while and people like it, it's pretty good, but that's challenging. I'll tell you one little story that helped crystallize it for me and actually makes it even more of a big deal to me. Temple University, 1984, had this really crazy professor, Calvin Pryluck, and back in the 80s, you could smoke in class. And he used to have one of those little tinfoil ashtrays, and he would lecture, and he would light a cigarette and take 2 puffs and put it out, so that by the end of class, his ashtray was completely filled with 2 puffs of cigarettes. Used to crack us up. I just say that to explain his character. He was really kind of crazy, and one day, towards the end of the semester, he asked, okay, what makes a successful director? And, you know, we were a bunch of seniors. Like, it was a beautiful spring day. We were all looking to get out of class, and everybody kind of gave some standard answers, like having a good script, having the appropriate budget. And he actually treated us like we were a bunch of little kids. He's like, no. Come on, what makes a successful director? What makes a successful anything? And we kept going around, and we didn't get it. And he kind of berated us and said, listen, if there's one thing you get out of Temple University, I want you to get this. That's your time here at Temple University. I want you to get this. If you create stuff for you that you really, really like, that excites the heck out of you, that you can't wait to share with family and friends, and a lot of other people like it, you're successful. If, on the other hand, you create stuff that you really, really love, stuff that, you know, excites you, you can't wait to share with family and friends, and a lot of other people don't like it, well, then go find yourself another career, kid. What that made me realize, took to my 30s to realize, that's all I've been doing my entire career. I do things that I really, really like, that really excite me, that I believe will work, will do the communication job, because, right, we're all in communication at the end of it. I get really excited about it. I get a little, probably overly passionate about it. I sell it. It happens. And so far, 35 years into a career, a lot of people have liked it. If a lot of people didn't like it, I wouldn't be doing this anymore. And so I know every time I put an idea out there, are a lot of people going to like it? Because you get older in your career, and I look at you guys and, you know, this new like wave and younger people coming out, and your access to technology and the way you can absorb information and creative and content. And I realize there's going to be one day that I'm going to put stuff out there and people aren't going to like it as much as they used to. And that's pretty much when it'll be time for me to stop being a director.
Wow.
I told you, man, I talk a lot.
Between Max Films, between TC Motion, what would you say was your favorite project you've worked on so far?
Yeah, that's really hard. There's been so many cool ones. Every day's a field trip for me. You remember that feeling when you were like elementary school and you all got to go on the bus and you were going somewhere you've never been before, and maybe you were driving into Philly and you got to see all those big buildings, and you went into the art museum or the Franklin Institute and like you saw all that granite and marble and all the kids from all the other schools, and that feeling of excitement you get because like you're going to experience something new. That kind of sums up what my career's been like. Every day is a field trip. I've done some really killer stuff that like I don't know how I would have done it was I not doing this. Like, I shot in Turkey 3 years after 9/11. Was there for 11, 12 days, and every lunch and every dinner I broke bread with another Muslim family, from really ultra conservative Muslim families to really progressive Muslim families. I was immersed in Turkish culture for 12 days and shot a documentary called Really Big Field Trip with 2 young children who really the whole premise was to shrink the world, and if we know each other better, perhaps we wouldn't be we wouldn't be enemies. Incredible experience. That was pretty cool. I've worked with so many animals. I worked with an orangutan for a spot for Suscom digital cable. This is probably 20 years ago. And some of your listeners might know the movie. There was this Every Which Way But Loose, which was a Clint Eastwood movie, and there was a famous orangutan in it. Well, this was that orangutan's son. His name was Pongo. And to work with Pongo was ticked. Pongo was mad because they rolled him up in a rolling cage behind a pickup truck from South Carolina to Baltimore to a studio. And when he arrived at the hotel that night, we all kind of came out to meet him, and it didn't take Pongo long to like survey the crowd and realize that guy's in charge, me. He was looking right at me. And the next day, he had some very specific things he had to do that, of course, his trainers told us, like, no problem, he can handle that. And he just didn't want to do it. He was just ticked off. And we had to put a diaper on him. We had like 9 of these T-shirts he had to wear, and he ripped every one but the last one. And so I went to Pongo. I had everybody just kind of walk away, and I went up to Pongo. Now, this he's pretty big. And there's a picture of me sitting with Pongo, and I basically looked at him and I said, look, Pongo, you're killing me here. Like, I know you're upset with me. I'm sorry. I didn't know they were going to roll you up in the cage. I know you don't want to do this, but I need you to do this one shot. Can you do that shot for me? And Pongo reached across and he pulled me in close to me and gave me like cheek to cheek. And then he did the scene. Phenomenal. But probably if only because it's contemporary, we do some work for a company called Kiko Car Safety Seats and Baby Products. It's owned by Artsana, which is in Italy, and they have a USA division. And we've done work for them for 10 years. They launch a new product, we do the video, and we did the launch of a stroller that to me looked like aviation equipment. It was really cool. They designed really cool stuff. And so I left an input meeting. I came back, and I had written on the tablet of our producer, I wrote the phrase airstrip. And when we got back, she goes, okay, so what's airstrip? And I said, well, this thing reminds me of like aviation stuff. And we're doing basically a feature benefit video, where I'm going to show some features so you can get the benefits. But I thought, what if we staged the whole thing on a runway at an airport rather than home or, around town? I'm always trying to find a different way to do it. And with that, why it's my favorite is it turned out it's a really neat spot. But I watched my staff. I don't know why I call them my staff, the staff. But like I really think of them as my staff, and I want these guys to do like great work. And I watched them all take off and add things to this creative. Our editor found this cute little aviator's beanie cap that the kid put on as part of the spot. Our production coordinator, I was looking for an abandoned airfield in California. I knew they existed because one of my favorite movies of all times is Stripes. And the very ending scene in Stripes, they're at an airfield and they all walk off the plane and then they march off into the distance. And I read an article that's an abandoned Air Force field and they're all over California. That's where I thought I was going. Our production coordinator found this place in New Mexico called Spaceport. And she said they would talk to us about renting it because Spaceport was built to be the launch place for Virgin Airlines launch vehicles to go to space. And they built this whole complex. Like when it's time to commercially go to space, you'll go to Spaceport, hop on the aircraft, take off out of the runway and, go to space. We rented the runway for a day. I had Spaceport USA and the runway at my disposal for a day. And we staged a little child preparing to go for a ride in his stroller, taking off. And at the end, you cut, and he's really taken off from his home. And I kind of had that idea going in. Like, that's where I was headed. But between the customer, the editor, the art director, the producer, even the wardrobe and casting people, everybody brought something to this spot that turned it into something so much better than where I started in my head. And so that experience tempers me a little bit. Like, they're not all my ideas. You can get rid of that putting the pressure on yourself to have it be the next, like, will everybody like this? If you remember that some of the best communication, certainly the best video, is collaborative. Like, tap the talents around you. And so I think that's my favorite. It's a really cool spot. My kid actually wrote the music for it, and it blows me away. We show that a lot when people are coming in to kind of get a sense of who and what we are. And we show it specifically because that wasn't just a single idea led by one single director. I led the charge, but everybody had a shape in it. So there's a long answer to your question.
So with a long time at TC Motion, you've seen a lot of changes throughout the company. Where is TC at today, and where do you see it going?
Really interesting question. And I think I mentioned to you I have a 1:30 meeting today, and it's a strategy meeting, and it's to continue to work on that exact same question. I've seen this business now from a lot of different angles, right? I was a cameraman, editor in a television station, then a producer, then a senior producer, 2 different television stations. I was in-house kind of corporate. I was a equity director in another company that I just had a small stake in. Then I was the principal director. And now I'm officially executive vice president, creative director at TC Motion. We were purchased in 2000, and let's see, it's 2018. The original founders of the company felt like they got it as far as they could do, as far as they could take it with their means, with their financial abilities. And they really went out looking for some investors to, like, we know we need another building. And that's where it kind of all started, try to find the capital to build an even bigger studio than what we already have, because work's demanding that we do that. The volume of work is demanding that we do that. It turned into a sale of the company to a private equity firm. So I thought I had seen this business from like almost every angle. Now I see it through the lens of finance, where really it's about this company buying TC, trying to get it to grow 3 to 5 times, and then flipping it, selling it to somebody else. And they've been really transparent and really open about it. There's nobody's thinking they're going to keep it for the long haul. They're trying to shape us into something even bigger. And we're like just 2 years into it, and that's still developing. This company doesn't have a portfolio that's filled with lots of creative companies, and creative's kind of a different beast. So they're still trying to figure that out. So where we're headed, the edict here is 3 to 5 times growth and sell in 3 to 5 years. We're 2 years in. If I had to guess right now, we will grow to the point where we now commission a new building and build the space that we need to really tear it up. And the company will be sold to somebody else who sees value in that business model. There's a part of you that goes, oh, you know? It's just all about money. And, you know, I'll admit, like, I kind of go through that too, because, like, you know, I'm in it for the juice, not for the money. But then you realize, you know, finance is needed. If we're going to share our creative and we're going to get a chance to create, you need capital. You need the fuel to make the engine go. And this group's got the capital. So there's that negative aspect to it, that it's like all about money. But then there's this gratitude aspect that we've got the money to do what we need to do to continue to grow down the path. So I'd say, you know, we're still in transition. We're still figuring it out. But I think the path is it wouldn't surprise me that we're 3 times the size we are in about 3 years.
So it's kind of like this, I don't know if vicious is the right word, but just this revolving cycle that will continue, and hopefully you keep growing and growing and growing and growing.
It's no different than, you know, when I first started out. If you're going to create, somebody's got to pay the bill, right? And I've always I've always wanted to be real. I never wanted to have a production company or be a one-man band who presented as real. I mean, I wanted to be real with health care for the employees and $3 million of liability insurance. And if I'm buying a camera, I want to be in Super 35 and with big PL primes. And I've always wanted to do it right. Well, that takes a certain amount of revenue to make that happen. And so what's going on right now with TC is really no different than what's going on through my whole career. Somebody's got to pay for the stuff I want to do. You could describe it as vicious, because sometimes it's vicious. Finance is a pain in the butt. Money isn't fun. So it kind of gets vicious, but I wouldn't describe it as a cycle. I describe it as a path. And it's starting somewhere, and I'm not quite sure where it's going to end. I'm hoping it ends where I have enough money to retire and sit on the beach and drink umbrella drinks and look at your work as it comes out.
So with growing your team, what are you looking for to bring someone onto your team? What are you looking for a new employee? Yeah,
good question, and probably really relevant to a lot of your listeners. I don't care if you can push buttons. I don't care if you know After Effects software. I mean, it helps. Somebody who's got equal strengths everywhere else and somebody really knows their way around After Effects, yeah, you're going to get the nod over somebody else. But that's not what I go looking for. I look for well-rounded people. I look for people who have experiences, who've been places, do things. Because that's where all your creative comes from, you know, is your experience and your interactions with the world. So, like, I like really well-rounded people who maybe have an art history degree and haven't really ever, like, edited. If there's other things in their persona, like what kind of music they're listening to and how broad it is, and do they have a beat? Can they dance? If I'm hiring a director, I don't care what school you went to. I'm going to ask you to tell me your favorite joke. And I'm going to see how you step through that joke for me. You know, storytelling, beginning, middle, and an end. And can you draw me in, take me down a path, and then hit me with the punchline? And that's all timing and all. So I'm looking for stuff like that. Yeah, of course, it starts with a resume, and you went here, and you did that, and you've got this experience, and we're getting reels from people. And, you know, I'm the kind of person, I had my own college reel as well. You know, I know what a college reel is. I don't look for the technical polish on it. Don't worry so much about making it look like, you know, national or would work on Netflix. I want to see that the root kernel is there, that you get framing. You understand lighting enough. Maybe you didn't have the instruments to really pull it off. I'm just looking for people that I think have a good vibe, who are passionate, like, and really thirsty to learn. And then, you know, when all things become equal, now I'm going to start looking at some stuff like, well, how much time have you spent on an After Effects box, right? You know, how much time will it take me to get you up to be able to quickly and efficiently get through a grading project and layer on some graphics? But like the last 2 graphics people I've hired are both from TC. You know, they had some experience in school on it, but I hired them right out of school because their characters, their vibe, their energy just seemed like it would work. Because you can, you know, as a team leader, I can get people the training they know, the training they need to be able to press the right buttons on a red. I don't know that I can teach you how to frame. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta kind of have that. So less credentials, more vibe for me.
But do you ever pursue personal work outside of your studio?
I haven't lately. I used to. I would do it not so much for money, just to get involved in some other projects. I've been on a bunch of shorts. I've done some documentary work with some other people, just kind of pro bono and gratis. But I'll tell you what, I have a hard enough time dividing my life, my professional life from my personal life. I don't make projects for me. I do some videotaping, shot a music video. My kids have a band in Nashville, and I've done some music video work for that, and I've called in some favors, and I've delivered a camera to other people's passion projects. But I've never went beyond my company of TC Motion or Max Films or VMI or whatever it was, and did stuff on my own because, frankly, I do it like 50 hours a week, and when I'm down, I'm down. I don't even want to talk film and video,
Just want to put your feet up and relax.
Just chill a little bit,
I want to ask, the video where you spent 12 days in Turkey?
Yep.
Is that up anywhere? Or
Yeah, it's called Really Big Field Trip. I think it's still this was shot 10 years ago, so I think there's still, you have to buy a DVD. It's in low def. It's called Really Big Field Trip Turkey. It's actually produced by a really incredible local group called Kids and Culture. They're the people who do the Taste of the World tour in downtown Lancaster, the restaurant tour. The Wangers, they're just incredible, and it was their son and daughter who was in it. You can find that there. There's some promos for it. But it really was, especially 3 years after 9/11, when it was, as raw as it was for all of us, to have that opportunity to really understand what Muslim life is like. It's not all jihadists in the desert, man. Like one of the people I had dinner with was a senior regional sales director for Mercedes-Benz in Turkey, but he was a Muslim, practiced Islam. Just like there are conservative Christians and there are, more liberal Christians, that same thing holds true in probably every faith. I can only speak about Islam and Christianity in that comparison. But yeah, what an incredible opportunity. It was awesome.
That's why I asked, because our department is doing a blog exchange. We actually just released it with Abu Dhabi, and we're trying to create a conversation to learn about other cultures.
I had the good fortune. Can I tell you another story?
Of course.
All right.
I'm not going to say no to a story.
Yeah, this career has it. If you can ride the wave takes you places. I had an old high school friend who went off to Japan for a while, and he taught English as a second language. And then he came back for a little while, and he actually sold for me at Max Films for about a year. And he left. It was time for him to move on, and somehow he ended up in Abu Dhabi as a workforce development, as a marketing director for a workforce development school for the Prince of Abu Dhabi. He needed to do an HR film, and they also had a film for the G7 meeting because this was a really interesting model. So here's how it works. In Abu Dhabi, there's all these multinational companies in both Abu Dhabi and Dubai. The Prince of Abu Dhabi said, we'll grant you that land. We'll set you up business operations here. We just want you to hire 2% of your workforce needs to be Emiratis. And all the multinationals agreed and thought that was a good idea, but they needed Emiratis to have the skills to perform that work function. Well, in the United Arab Emirates, oil, the princes there are they take care of the people, and so everybody just gets a check. And they're all driving Range Rovers and Lamborghinis, guys 20 some years old. But what's happened is you kind of lose some self-worth when you're there was this boredom. Suicide rate was actually creeping up, and so the prince realized I need these people to be engaged, and I have to protect this country for when the oil runs out. And so he set up a school that you come to learn skills so you can work in these multinationals. And the thing was, it was free. My friend, the marketing director, just had to convince people to take advantage of the opportunity. I mean, what an incredible kind of way in to think about marketing. And so he wanted to do a film, and he told his general manager at the school, this Egyptian dude, crazy dude, about me. And this guy said, well, we have to do the film for the G7 too, because the G7, which is a meeting of these 7 Gulf states, this was a really unique workforce development thing, so they needed a film for the G7. So I get a call one day going, hey, we need 2 films over here. Can you come on over to Istanbul? Okay. So I flew over to Istanbul, had tea, got the project laid out, got a tour, kind of understood it. Went back to the States, came up with a treatment and an idea and a plan of attack, and was going to call to present it with them. And they said, no, fly over. We will have tea. Okay. So I flew back over to Abu Dhabi for a second time. Actually, Abu Dhabi for a second time. Had tea, greenlit the whole thing. They were ready to go. We were going to shoot in 4 or 5 weeks out. And so went back to Abu Dhabi. Shot a little bit in Dubai, shot a little bit in Abu Dhabi. And there was this one scene where I wanted to get a shot of the skyline of Abu Dhabi because it's just phenomenal. And it literally rises up out of the Persian Gulf. And it's emerald and silver and shiny, and it's like Oz. It's like amazing. And so I wanted the shot where I'm skimming over waves, and then the camera kind of lifts up, and while we're heading towards it on the water, there is Abu Dhabi rising from the water. So I had this idea, I had the budget to do it. Hired a boat, a speedboat. So I have a unit manager who's a South African that I hired out of out of Dubai. And he helped us permits and local crew. He was my local guy on the ground. I had a crew of 4 Indonesians who were lighting grips, camera assistants, riggers. They do anything. And then we hired this speedboat, and it was 2 Dutch, a captain and a first off and a mate, were from the Netherlands. And we have to get our camera. And at that point, I was shooting super 16 millimeter film, and that got transferred to high def. This is like 10, 12 years ago. We're working through the shot, and there was a point where we got the shot once, and now we're going to do a couple other passes. And so I sat at the back of the boat with my friend who I went to high school with, and the shot's going again, and my assistant cameraman, Danny Sariano, who flew in from New York for it, kind of ran the next couple of takes so that I could just sit back and, we're going about 45 miles an hour in the Persian Gulf, getting this shot of Abu Dhabi, realizing Iran's about, 45 miles behind us. And we looked at each other like, how are we here? Like, how are we doing this? And there's like 3 languages going on. Everybody's yelling at each other. And it was just, it was a remarkable experience. And this industry is what, even gave me that experience. Abu Dhabi and Dubai, if you can get any links with those countries or people in those countries who are doing work, it's just phenomenal. It's really, it opens your eyes to how production's done all around the world.
Well,
incredible.
Thank you. Thanks for the story. I'm sure our department, with the partnership we're doing with Abu Dhabi, it's amazing to hear about other creative directions with that. Another relevant question that's not necessarily on here that might be relevant to a lot of our listeners. For this upcoming summer, are you looking for any more interns?
We'll hire up to 2. I don't know that we've had 3. Well, I don't want to say hire because we don't pay. We'll pay you in. We hope you're leaving with something on your reel, and we will pay you in experience. For that, then, I also don't charge you back into a cost summary, right? Like, if I was going to charge for you to be a PA, well, then I need to pay you. But we don't do that. We always say on set, we have this, I have this saying that we're a teaching hospital. And so our customers will know that Matt's got to hop on the camera right now and try his hand at this shot because we're pretty good on schedule. And we want to give Matt an opportunity to feel like what a red's like with a 85 millimeter prime on a jib. So we look for 2. We can take as many as 2. And every semester, fall, spring, and then summer, we at least have 1. Summer's probably the slowest time of year for us. Yeah. Well, right now we're tied to a couple of lines of business that just aren't summer. July specifically gets kind of like, you're twiddling your thumbs and you're wondering wow, is work ever going to come back or is this it? Yeah. Well, at Max Films, my employees used to always just beg me to just take the month of July off, man. Because by the second week of July, I'd walk around like, oh man, what's happened to all the work? Because you forget every July. 4th quarter. So fall internship is always jamming. I mean, we do 60% of our revenue in those 3 months. It's crazy. The spring one's pretty robust. Matt's going to get into a number of different types of projects going on right now. And then summer always has, one or two. It's just not as adventure packed as maybe some of the other semesters. But you can apply for an internship. Has to be through an accredited internship program at your school. Brett Miller, who's our camera operator, right now is spearheading that. He's B Miller at tcmotion.net. B Miller, tcmotion.net, and put your inquiry there. Brett will bring in everybody and talk to everybody. It's rare that we get more applicants than we have positions, but it does happen. And so if that happens, then we kind of pick the intern that we think will either fit best with us or maybe would get the most out of the experience. But yeah, internships are available.
Perfect.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to extend a thank you to Max and Matt for coming out.
Oh yeah, Matt's our intern. Matt's here.
I'm just here.
Say hi, Matt.
Hi, man.
But thank you again for the both of you coming out and taking the time to talk to us. We really look forward to hopefully establishing a more in-depth relationship between Pennsylvania College of Art and Design and TC Motion.
We would love it.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing how things go in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.